Here's Mike Pence making a bad framing even worse on race issues. Let's listen in.
You know, my uncle was a cop, a career cop, on the beat in downtown Chicago. He was my hero when I was growing up.
Let me speed him up a little bit.
To be able to really restore law and order to the cities and communities of this nation. It's probably why the 330,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed Donald Trump as the next president of the United States of America, because they see his commitment to them. They see his commitment to law and order. But they also hear the bad-mouthing. The bad-mouthing that comes from people that seize upon tragedy in the wake of police action shootings as a reason to use a broad brush to accuse law enforcement of implicit bias or institutional racism. And that really has got to stop. I mean, when an African-American police officer in Charlotte named Brentley Vinson, an all-star football.
All right, so he gives an example of, and it was funny how, right, the example he's getting ready to use is an example of a black police officer who killed a black unarmed man. So Mike Pence takes this framing from the moderator and he expands on it. Now, first of all, in all fairness to Mike Pence, Tim Kaine in the section before it didn't answer it any better, right? He really kind of just did that triangulation kind of coddling of everybody's feelings without addressing the issue head on. Then Mike Pence comes along with this clip that you just saw, and Mike Pence is doubling down on this horrible framing with, describing people who complain about police violence as simply bad-mouthing. Then he goes further and makes it seem like it's appalling to believe that there's such a thing called implicit bias and systemic racism. And he just kind of casually dismissed, not even casually, he very vehemently dismissed this entire concept that there is a systemic problem that we're facing. And he tried to use the few examples of when it's a black officer who killed a black person as a means of undermining the entire framework of police brutality, police killings, and implicit bias. So instead of addressing it on the numbers, right, he could say like out of 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 people, black men killed by police officers who are unarmed have been white. But instead of doing something like that, he tries to focus a really old rhetorical device. He focuses on one outlier and uses this outlier as a means of trying to undermine the entire premise. But all the rhetorical analysis aside, this is the perception of half of America, probably more of white Americans and some minorities who look at these instances of police killings of unarmed black men and women, people of color, and white people for that matter. They look at it as we're just bad mouthing, or we don't have anything legitimate to complain about, and our complaining is using and taking advantage of a tragic situation. So he'll claim that it's a tragic situation, but we simply shouldn't say anything about it because that's an example of bad mouthing. I'm going to go to Brandon and then I'm going to pass it to you, Hank. What did you think about that section?
I just want to double down. I think that ultimately he was just trying to confuse the issue by putting forth this idea that, oh, well, black people can't be racist toward other black people.
Yeah.
Or that somehow being a minority in general counteracts any kind of implicit bias you might have. But I don't know where he learned what implicit bias means, but that's just not the way it works.
Yes.
I think he could have gone, I think, I just double back, I think that the framing of the original question came across as very Blue Lives Matter in this context. And the way he addressed it was very, black on black crime or black on black violence, dog whistling, when he could have made a better point. He could have made a point that Democrats are only interested in this kind of stuff when it's expedient. It's only when there's a tragedy. But when are Democrats actually pushing crime reform bills, police reform bills, or any kind of structural systemic change bills? And when there isn't a black shooting, when there isn't some sort of external force forcing them to do that. That would have been a better point than what the point he made was.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well said. Hank, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, this issue, I mean, I just don't know how you can even pretend like there isn't some sort of implicit bias. I see it from the Chicago PD in my own life. This was a couple weeks back. I was parting ways with my friends from school, and I had walked one way, and my two other friends had walked the other way, and this police car pulled up, and they told me to watch out because these two black kids had turned around and looked at me as we were going by, like they were my friends, And it's just, I think, if those friends hadn't been black, I don't think it would have had the same sort of I don't think we would have gotten the same response, or they would have been pulled over. I mean, you look at the rates that white people and black people are pulled over or arrested by cops. You see it every day, and then he's just trying to dilute this issue by talking about black cops killing black people. It's just a dilution of the issue overall. Yep. And I think both of you said it. I think both of you said it very well.
Yeah, we're just patting each other on the back here because actually I like what you just said. So we all agree on that. Pretty straightforward. It was a clear attempt to confuse the situation. And Tim Kaine, actually, I think this is when, and I'm not looking anyway. I'm not giving any disclaimers. This is when Tim Kaine woke up. And actually showed up to the debate. Listen to his response to Mike Pence on this question of, is there such a thing called implicit bias?
Questions about Senator Scott. What would you tell Senator
Lane,
Scott?
If I could jump, but I've heard Senator Scott make that eloquent plea. And look, criminal justice is about respecting the law and being respected by the law. So there is a fundamental respect issue here. And I just want to talk about the tone that's set from the top. Donald Trump during this campaign has called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He's called women slobs, pigs, dogs, disgusting. I don't like saying that in front of my wife and my mother. He attacked an Indiana-born federal judge and said he was unqualified to hear a federal lawsuit because his parents were Mexican. He went after John McCain, a POW, and said he wasn't a hero because he'd been captured. He said African Americans are living in hell, and he perpetrated this outrageous and bigoted lie that President Obama is not a U.S. citizen. If you want to have a society where people are respected and respect laws, you can't have somebody at the top who demeans every group that he talks about. And I cannot believe that Governor Pence will defend the insult-driven campaign that Donald Trump has run.
All right, I want to turn to our next.
All right, so now listening to it again, it's funny. It's really good to listen twice, right? And that's the number one thing I want to say. It's a good idea to listen twice because listening to it again, he did not answer or respond correctly enough to Mike Pence. I still don't know them well enough to not mess up their names. Mike Pence, he didn't confront any of the things that we just talked about in terms of implicit biases. He didn't confront any of that. He may have done it in a later clip, but I don't have that right now if he did. But what he did, though, was he used that as an opportunity to pivot to the strategy that he kept the rest of the night, which was, these are the things that Donald Trump has said. Are you going to defend him on it? And I noticed something happening through the rest of the night. From that point forward, Tim Kaine woke the hell up, and Mike Pence, all he could do was shake his head and deny that Donald Trump said all of the things that he said. Here's the question.
Yeah,
well, it's actually two. Go ahead. Go for it, Hank.
What I saw clearly was like a shadow of the debate last week. I saw Trump really was hammering Clinton last week in the first 20 minutes, half hour, and then Clinton woke up and started hammering back, and he was only able to shake his head and say, no, look at the facts, go read a book, go see. And he couldn't fight back after a while. So.
Yeah, and that was so obvious. It was painfully obvious, and we have plenty. I mean, the internet exists, Mike Pence. It exists, and we can verify it right on the fly. Even the portion about banning Muslims. Somebody on Twitter shared it within 2 seconds of him saying that Donald Trump has not said that he's going to ban Muslims. They shared a link to Donald Trump's website, and actually I want to pull it up so I don't read it out of context, where it says Donald Trump's statement on preventing Muslim immigration, right? So he has an entire section there. Not only has he said it as a talking point, but he also has it on his website. So Mike Pence was put in this painful position of having to defend all of the crazy stuff that Donald Trump has said. Now, here's the question, twofold. One,